another edition of History in Your Own Backyard. I'm Danielle, and today we'll be talking with Bev, a member of the Harrison Sims Memorial Foundation. We'll be learning all about the Cincinnati Whitewater Canal Tunnel right here in Cleves, Ohio. Hi, Bev. Thanks so much for talking with us.
Thanks for talking about the tunnel.
So tell me, what do you know about the tunnel?
The tunnel was originally started in 1839, and it's 1,782 feet long, and it was built because the business people in Cincinnati wanted a leg off of the Whitewater Canal to bring goods in from Indiana. And when they got to this ridge, they couldn't go over it because it was too deep. So the first 400 feet and last 400 feet was open cut. And then they started the tunnel. Darnius Lapham was the engineer, and he did a good job engineering it. It was built before there was dynamite and TNT. It was built with black powder and shovels. So the Irish men were coming here because of the famine in Ireland. So most of it was built by Irish workers.
Okay. And how long is the tunnel?
It's 1,782 feet long. It's not presently that long because 600 feet was cut off for Route 50 when they moved Route 50 from Miami Avenue over to where it is now. They made the brick on site here, and they discovered 100 feet down, they discovered flora, which would be cedar from probably a very, very long time ago.
Wow.
And it took 2 million bricks to do the tunnel.
Wow.
What they did was they open cut so that they could get the flow through the tunnel for the canal boats. There's a lot of stories about the tunnel. Of course, Cleves was kind of a hotbed for the abolitionist movement in 1838. They had a riot at the Presbyterian Church because the abolitionists held their convention there. So many stories of how many people might have used the tunnel to escape from the South.
Wow.
But during World War II, the men that worked shift work at the Gulf refinery and places, the tunnel was open then, and they would go down in the tunnel because it was cool, because it was before air conditioning. They would play cards down there because they couldn't sleep because there wasn't. And so there were some card games and some beer drinking that went on in the tunnel.
Okay.
My brother did walk through the tunnel. We lived on the North Bend side of it, and I never did do it.
Okay.
They always said there was quicksand in the tunnel because that kind of kept me out, but snakes kind of kept me out too.
Yeah, it would have kept me out also.
Yeah. So a lot of people did walk through the tunnel. Cincinnati paid for part of the tunnel. The state of Ohio paid for part of it, and then they issued bonds too.
So, Bev, tell me about the water that was coming through the canal.
At this point, the water would have come from the Great Miami River, and it went into Cincinnati, and it had a flow of 3/4 of an inch drop per mile, and the velocity of the water was used to run about 90 millstones. So they sold the water in Cincinnati.
And one other really piece of interesting history is that the bricks that were made for the canal, there was a special way that they made them. Can you tell us about that?
Right. There was a new invention, and it was a circular invention, and I've seen drawings of it. And the bricks would go around, and they would cut angles so that the brick would be angled in because you're making an arch. The limestone came from Scioto County.
Okay.
That would be the face stones for it, and it did have a keystone.
Okay.
And the bricks were 4 layers thick, and they were made on site.
Okay. So, Bev, tell me about the railroads that were here.
Well, the canal era ended, and so the railroads bought the right-of-ways, and they used their towpath they used for the railroads. But once they got to Cleves, they had the same problem as the canal builders did. They had to go a little bit lower because they had this ridge of hills. And so they ran the train tracks through the tunnels.
Thanks so much for tuning in again to today's edition of History in Your Own Backyard. Today we spent time talking with Bev right here in Cleves, Ohio at the site of the Cincinnati Whitewater Canal Tunnel. I certainly hope that you enjoy learning all about it. Remember, travel slowly and stop often. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.